Hi everyone, I'm Claire Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I am making a recipe that is perfect for the height of summer. It is zucchini bread. It's a quick bread. It's incredibly fast and easy to make, and it's just like that perfect snacking cake that you can eat all day. My mom did make zucchini bread when I was a kid, and I always loved it. Her recipe is very typical of a lot of zucchini bread recipes in that it uses a ton of sugar. So my goal with this recipe was to dial down the sugar a little bit and to bring in some brighter flavors to make it a little more summery, because often what zucchini bread is like a heavily spiced bread. You mix it by hand and it's usually oil based. So today I am switching it up. Normally it's like a neutral oil. I'm using olive oil. I'm adding some lemon zest. So this is just to kind of brighten it up, give it like some more complex notes that don't come from just like the warm spices. The main trick, because one of the big risks with zucchini bread is because you're adding so much of this kind of like pulpy vegetable. The main risk is that it gets actually too wet. It's like too squidgy and it doesn't really fully bake through, and it's just like an unpleasant texture. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna squeeze out the zucchini. So if you check out this episode from a long time ago, where I make scones with Natasha Pikowitz, the pastry chef, we do the same technique. And the idea is that then you can replace all that water with like other more flavorful ingredients. I have two kind of smallish medium zucchini weighing a total of about 15 ounces. I need 14 ounces total of grated. So minus the tops, we'll have about that. I have a lemon because I'm going to use the zest, 2 large eggs, a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt, all-purpose flour, olive oil, some demerara sugar. Here is, you can't really tell the difference because I used 1 bowl, but it's baking powder and soda, kosher salt, a little bit of cinnamon for just a bit of warmth, but not to overwhelm, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and vanilla extract. Special equipment. The main thing is a loaf pan. So here I have a very standard size loaf pan, a little bit of parchment paper for lining it. I have a couple of bowls. I'm gonna grab a whisk. And then the main thing you really need is a box grater and a clean kitchen towel for grating and then wringing out your zucchini. I'm gonna start by grating the zucchini. I'm using the large holes of the box grater, and I'm gonna do it right over a clean kitchen towel. You don't need to peel it first. I'm just gonna maybe trim that very like stem end. Well, actually, I guess that's the stem end, the other end. So leaving the skin on. Zucchini is like summer's answer to carrot cake, although you can make carrot cake in the summer. The idea is that you're not getting flavor from the zucchini because it doesn't have a lot of flavor on its own in its raw form. You're just getting moisture from it. So it does make like a very, very moist cake. But as I said, the more zucchini you add, the more water content you're adding, because zucchini is like 90-something% water. So that's why we squeeze it out, because we still want the softness and moisture that it gives, but without quite so much water content. Definitely you could do this with the grating disc in your food processor, but it takes like less than 2 minutes to grate a couple zucchini by hand. So here we have all of this zucchini shreds. And you can see it looks like a lot, like it looks like enough to fill the loaf pan already, but we really want to get rid of a lot of the water. So obviously working over the sink, you don't need to keep this liquid. I guess you could keep it for like a green juice or something. And we get the strongest person in your household to help you with this. If you're like me and you have no strength in your hands, like I can't open jars, it's a whole thing. Okay, so it's pretty well wrung out. So 2 cups. Just gonna get everything out of that towel. So now I actually kind of did the first step without doing the real first step, which is prepping the pan. I got too excited about grating the zucchini. My oven is already on 350. Make sure you have the rack in the center of the oven. So this is just like a little additional olive oil, and I have my standard loaf pan here. I like to just brush a thin layer of oil all across the bottom and sides. This is an OXO loaf pan, which I've used for many years. It's light colored. It has a little bit of a coating, but it's not nonstick. So generally speaking, I don't recommend nonstick cookware. It's usually very dark. And what happens is it usually leads to like overcooking and it getting too brown on the sides before the center is done. So generally, like I always recommend a light colored anodized aluminum cookware. So now I have a piece of parchment paper that I cut to be the same. It's as wide as the pan is long. So that's our prepped pan. And now we're ready to assemble the batter. I have 2 bowls. In the smaller of the 2, I'm gonna just whisk my dry ingredients. I have the all-purpose flour. It's just a half teaspoon of cinnamon. If you like a different warm spice, like if you like a little cardamom or nutmeg or something in your zucchini bread, go ahead and add that. I just wanted a little bit of the warmth. A teaspoon of kosher salt, and then 3/4 teaspoons each baking powder and soda. So I'm adding, I have like a little bit of acidity from the yogurt. I have the lemon zest, so that's gonna react with the baking powder, or the baking soda rather. I found in zucchini bread that often they're like, can be really dense, and that's because the zucchini literally weighs it down and makes it hard for it to rise. So we just wanna make sure that we get something with like enough lift. So go ahead and whisk those together. Then I'm gonna start in the larger bowl. I'm gonna combine my 2 sugars, the demerara and the granulated. Now I'm going to finely grate the zest of a lemon. So just trying to add a little pep to the standard recipe.
How do you identify what good quality olive oil is at the grocery store?
When I'm at the grocery store and I'm buying an olive oil that I'm not familiar with, you want to look for certain words on the label. You always want to see extra virgin olive oil. You want to see first press. I do like a single origin olive oil. I like for the olives to be the same place where it's bottled, and Italian produced olive oil, like olives from Italy, just because Italy actually underproduces olive oil for the amount of consumption like within the country. And so I know if it made its way out of Italy, it's probably pretty good. So now I have my zest and my sugars, and you've seen me do this before if you've pretty much seen any recipe that I've made with citrus, where I'm gonna massage this together. And this helps to bring out the oils in the zest, so it gets like super fragrant and lemony. So in all of my recipes, whenever I'm describing this step, the thing that I always say is that you should continue to massage until it looks like wet sand. So it's gonna kind of start to hydrate the sugar a little bit. And now what I'm gonna do is, before I proceed to mix the batter, I'm gonna just remove 2 tablespoons. I have this super random measure that I thought I'd never use, but I actually use all the time. This is a 2 tablespoon. And I'm gonna set this aside. I'm gonna use to sprinkle over the top. I'm gonna build everything in my bowl with the sugar. I'm gonna start by adding my 2 large eggs. Obviously these eggs are wildly different sizes, but they're from our chickens, so that happens, and I just take the average. Close enough. So now I just wanna whisk this together really well. Anytime I'm making a quick bread, which generally means I'm making it by hand, so no mixer, I always start, and also generally if it's a quick bread, it's oil-based. And I always start with this step, which is mixing together the eggs and sugar. And it helps to create a more homogeneous texture in the final batter, and also it is a mixture that you can kind of whip, so you can work a little bit of air into it and lighten it, and that always just helps with the overall kind of leavening. Okay, so that looks good. You can see how it's a little bit paler, and it's like a little bit fluffy in texture. Now I'm gonna add vanilla, just a teaspoon of vanilla extract, my 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt. So this, in my mind, this is kind of what's replacing a lot of that water that we squeezed out of the zucchini. So that gets whisked in. Now I'm gonna add my oil, and I'm gonna slowly stream it in while I whisk constantly. That's gonna help it to emulsify into that egg mixture. And again, it's gonna help create a nice uniform, even texture. You can see it's kind of, with the oil emulsifying in, it's kind of taking on like a satiny, smooth texture. That looks great. So it's just a half cup of olive oil. And you don't want to use like the fanciest finishing oil that you have, but you also don't want to use the cheapest. So something that you would like normally cook with, I think is just fine. Okay, time to assemble. I'm gonna take that like heavily squeezed zucchini and I'm gonna mix it in with my dry ingredients. And this is to prevent a lot of clumping that can happen. Because we squeezed it together, the shreds really kind of want to like stay in these clumps. So this is just gonna help me distribute it evenly in the batter. All right, so just go ahead and break up, like see that clump? That's what you want to just kind of break up, and so the shreds are all evenly coated. That's so easy, you're basically done. So now I'm just gonna add this to my bowl of wet ingredients and just fold it together. So continue to mix this until you see no more flour pockets, and you kind of want to look around carefully because they can be kind of hidden. It's a thicker batter. All right, so now into the prepared pan. Batter tastes good. Okay, so now I'm just going to smooth the surface. And the final step before I bake is to sprinkle that reserved 2 tablespoons of that like lemony sugar over top. Even in a recipe, which is all my recipes, where I'm really careful about the sugar content, it's just that little crunch of sugar on top is so crucial and goes a long way. My oven's at 350, so this is gonna go in on that center rack and it's gonna bake until the top is nice and domed and split and golden brown, and then a cake tester is gonna come out clean, so like 40 minutes or so. So it's been like 45 minutes and I just took a peek, and what you wanna look for is where that where the batter cracks, you want that little area to look dry. So if it's wet, it's underdone. I tested it earlier, it was still like the cake tester was coming out a little bit wet, but now it's done. So I'm gonna pull it out. It smells so good. It's nice and golden brown. Now we're gonna let this cool. You can see it's like such an easy, quick recipe, and quick breads, because they're oil-based, last a really long time. So if you did wanna double it because you have a ton of zucchini from your garden or just from the grocery store, you definitely can, and they keep like at least a week on your countertop. So this has been cooling for maybe like an hour or so. I'm gonna now just cut around the cake on the short sides because I have that parchment paper to help me lift it out. It got really nice rise. So I'm just gonna turn it on its side to get that parchment paper out from underneath. This is the perfect time of day for like a little slightly sweet snacks. I'm very excited. Ooh, it looks so good. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes what happens with zucchini is that there's so much weight and water in the grated zucchini that it doesn't fully bake through. Like, it is literally so heavy that you get this like squidgy layer at the bottom of the loaf. And this, I'm happy to say, has none of that. It is like a beautiful, like super evenly baked through, but like incredibly moist texture. It looks so good. Beautifully baked, nice amount of moisture, but not wet and not heavy. I'm gonna taste it. When you smell it, definitely get like that whiff of olive oil. Just like that little hint of cinnamon, perfect amount of warm spice. There's a little bit of lemon from the zest. The texture is so soft. And then I love the crunchy sugar on top. This to me is like the ideal zucchini bread. It's incredibly easy to make. It uses up a lot of zucchini, and the flavor is sort of a little bit lighter than your typical zucchini bread that might have walnuts and warm spices in it, because it's not winter, it's summer. I want to feel like it's summer, and I just don't think it could be any better. Love it. Not too much sugar. Sugar keeps things moist, and it's like you already have the zucchini in there. It's going to do it on its own. So good. I think this is a zucchini bread, totally worthy of summer. I really hope you try it. For anyone that's never had zucchini bread, it might sound super weird, but think of it like a more summery version of carrot cake. And I promise you're gonna love it. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It's really good. Delicious.